Did you know that 280 people were injured and 3 people died in the Boston Marathon bombing? Today, my name is Jimbo, and we're going to figure out why that happened and what has changed since.
My name is Yassine, and the Boston Marathon bombing was a major event that shook the United States in 2013. This image right here represents that it was not just an act of terrorism, but also a turning point for national security, public resilience, and social unity.
My name is Nick, and on April 15, 2013, 2 bombs exploded near the finish line of the Boston Marathon. 3 people were killed and over 260 were injured. This image shows the chaotic aftermath with runners and spectators trying to escape. It captures the fear, confusion, and emergency response that followed within seconds.
The bombing was carried out by 2 brothers, Tamarin and Zokhar Tesfanev. Their actions were influenced by extremist beliefs, and the attack sparked a huge law enforcement response, including the biggest manhunt in U.S. history and a citywide lockdown. This event reflects a larger trend in the modern era, the rise of domestic terrorism and the growing importance of homeland security.
In class, we studied the events of 9/11 and the changes it brought, like the Patriot Act and the Department of Homeland Security. The Boston Marathon bombing connects directly to that. It showed that terrorism didn't stop after 9/11 and that it could come from inside the US, not just overseas. Like 9/11, this event made America rethink about safety, surveillance, and civil rights. These 2 images connect to each other, showing the terrorism and horror that these events brought to the civilians. In history still matters today. First, it brought people together, showing how community can recover and stand united. Second, it changed how major events are protected. Today, marathons, concerts, and public spaces have way more security. And finally, it reminds us that we still have to face the threat of radicalization and need to balance freedom and safety in modern democracy. Remember the Boston Marathon bombing in 2013?
Yeah, I was there as a kid with my parents. I didn't remember too much when I was like a little kid, but they actually told me many stories about the bombing.
Do you remember anything about the Boston Marathon bombing in 2013?
Yes, I was actually going to go to the exactly where the final was happening, where they crossed the finish line. And my dad was a block away and saw and heard the bomb go off and called my mom not to go.
2013?
Yeah, I think my parents told me a lot about how it was a United States tragedy.
Yeah, I mean, I was living in Boston, and my parents were actually at the marathon, so saw it.
Yeah, I watched it live on TV with my parents. It was very sad.
Do you remember anything about the Boston Marathon bombing in 2013?
Not really, but my parents said I was pretty sad because I had to skip someone's birthday party since we had to stay inside while they were catching the bomber.
Do you remember the Boston Marathon bombing in 2013?
Yes, I do.
Were you nearby when it happened?
Yeah, I was walking with my parents and my brother, and they told us to go inside and say where it's safe because the bomber was still loose.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and do you think security in the U.S. has gotten better ever since then?
I think it has gotten a lot more strict because now that we have TSA and stuff like that, but there's still a lot of problems like school shootings. That's obviously a massive problem, and it's still not very safe in many places.
Do you think that the U.S. has changed its security over the years since then?
I think they're like TSA. I think definitely increased security, everywhere. Like airports, like security buildings, cameras. I think the technology has improved a lot for our safety.
Not really. As you can see, like now, there's a lot of mass shootings, riots, a lot of sort of other stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Someone I knew ran it a couple years back, and they mentioned there were a lot of police officers stationed.
Yeah, I mean, we see like a lot of stuff. I mean, TSA has been around since like 9/11, but still, there's like airport security and all that stuff.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more security at events like that, and even like events that we see at the high school and stuff.
Do you think that the security in the U.S. has changed ever since the bombing, and 9/11 too included?
Hell nah, bro. Oh my goodness, nothing changed at all. We still got a lot of like shootings, less known shootings, but it's still happening.
Yeah.
Not as much like the Boston Marathon where it's like bombing, like here and there. It's just like,
Loss of life.
Loss of life, bro.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, sir. In the end, the Boston Marathon bombing wasn't just a tragedy. It became a symbol of how people come together in times of crisis. It teaches us that strength, unity, and justice are values that we must continue to defend in today's world. My name is Yassine. Thank you for tuning in with us, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks for watching. Here's all our sources, and thank you to everyone who was in the interview today, and I'll see you in the next one.